Okay, let's try and do this really quickly. It's about 2:30 on April 29th. Over the past week or so, I've been following the events that began with the terrorist incident in Kashmir. This was didn't really cause much of a blip on my radar at the time it happened. I just thought, well, just another terrorist incident. And then things escalated kind of quickly, at least in the media. India then suspended this Indus Waters Treaty and thereby cutting off half of Pakistan's water supply and also expelling like its diplomatic staff or something like out of India, giving all the Pakistani nationals 48 hours to evacuate the country. And so like things really kind of like geared up afterwards, as if, India was going to take it, you know, up a notch in terms of like military action or something. It's been about a week and we haven't heard much, presumably because they're still investigating exactly what happened. The Indian intelligence right now is gathering up all its evidence to present a report. But there are apparently digital footprints that lead to Pakistan and some intercepts that point to Pakistan. But nothing's actually been officially released yet. And thus far, the Indian government's been fairly quiet. And most of the saber rattling has been from Pakistani ministers saying all kinds of ridiculous things. Um, Now, what worries me about this is that at the end of the day, this could leave India in a weaker position. And not only that, but I wanted to I wanted to address this issue that some people have pointed out that this was a false flag attack. I don't believe it was. At least it wasn't a false flag attack authorized by the Indian government because it really wouldn't make any sense to do so at all, at least from my perspective. The Indian economy is set to again perform reasonably well. It's set to perform at over 6%, making it the world's fastest growing economy. And the GDP is about to go to about 4.25 trillion this year. And so the economy is actually on an upswing, and relations with the U.S. And the are getting stronger. In fact, India and the U.S. are well on the way to securing a pretty mutually lucrative trade deal. So there's no reason for India to have done this right now. It's not interested really in conflict. It can't afford conflict whatsoever with either China or Pakistan. But it's a ripe old time for China to stir things up in India because it's having economic issues of its own thanks to this tariff situation. Now that Trump has imposed these punishing tariffs on China and it's about to lose some of its export business that India might actually take up, it wants to destabilize India and make it a place where people will not want to invest and they'll want to look at it as a place that's risky and is like could be a target for terrorism. If this was a false flag, I mean, it would have been orchestrated by Pakistan with the go-ahead from China because if it has no motivation to have been done so on the Indian side. Let's just assume that it was like a genuine terrorist attack, okay? And then this outfit called the Resistance Front or whatever bullshit outfit it was claims responsibility. All indications are that it's a Lashkar-e-Taiba cutout stationed in Kashmir. I mean, there's really nothing that extraordinary about that. The thing is, at the end of the day, like I said, India is going to lose, or it stands to lose, unless Jaishankar, the foreign minister, and Modi are able to, do some sort of outmaneuvering. It's in a India's in a precarious position. It can't afford military conflict, and I don't think it will go there. What keeps me up is what its options are, and there aren't many. My guess is that it'll probably launch like some limited tactical strikes in Pakistan occupied Kashmir using cruise missiles, and take out terrorist camps or something. It'll make up some like pretext to do it. So it could do that. It could maybe do some limited other military strikes, but it won't be anything where Pakistan and China could justify a full-scale military action. So there's that. The problem really, as I see it, is that for a long time, India has ignored the threat of China on its borders. It's sort of ignored it. China is kind of like the Leviathan in Asia at the moment. And if you really wanted to, if I were to really tell you what I believe, and I'm talking about the People's Communist Party of China and the Republic of India cannot coexist. They cannot coexist because China's encirclement strategy around India. It's China-Pakistan economic corridor in occupied Kashmir. Its recent plan to set up an airbase in Bangladesh close to that corridor, the Chicken's Neck corridor in eastern India. Its takeover of Tibet, even though Mao had told Nehru he had no intention of doing so in 1950. And of course, Chinese-occupied Kashmir, which is northeastern Kashmir. All of these, to me, prove that China cannot be trusted, that China is a hostile power, and it's done everything possible to undermine India. I mean, it just has. It's objectively true. So that worries me. And I think India's lack of strategic preparedness right now, going into this past week, is going to really limit its options going forward. And it could really weaken India's options. So other than a limited military strike, I don't see Modi being able to do a whole lot else. Here is the other part uh, about India's military. You know that the armed forces are sanctioned for 43 squadrons in Kashmir, but for some reason, over the last 10 years or whatever, they've been content with 31 squadrons, knowing full well that they could one day have to fight a two-front war in Kashmir. Because it's never going to be just Pakistan. Not anymore. Not anymore. As soon as they actually do any military incursion of any seriousness, they're going to have to get China is going to get involved. And because China has openly stated that Pakistan is its ironclad brother, those are its quotes. We can't trust China. It's not a friendly neighbor. It is a hostile power, and it's proven to be so. No matter what they tell you, no matter what they tell Modi, no matter what they tell the media, there's no friendship between these two, even though India for a long time has given China a lot of rope. And that same rope is now going to be used to strangle India. So, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, they're only equipped for 31 squadrons, and they don't even have fifth generation fighters in Kashmir. India has a fifth gen program, but it won't be ready for 10 years. 10 years. By then, China will have sixth generation fighters. Pakistan could easily pick up China's fifth generation fighters right now if it wanted to. Um, in my opinion, China has a superior air force right now, ready to go, while India is still struggling with the fourth generation force, the Sukhoi MKI, the Sukhoi 30s, the Rafales, which is a 4.5 generation fighter, but there's only 36 of them. None of that's going to change for the foreseeable future. Why? Because the Indian bureaucracy is extremely slow-footed, and it has not approached this matter with the required urgency, and now they're paying the price for it. This is what I mean. India backed itself into this corner, and it's limited its options. So um, this is going to be India's situation for at least 5 years. There's going to be no new fighters. They're going to have the Tejas Mark 1A up and ready with some limited squadrons over the next couple of years, and then the Tejas Mark II over the next 4 or 5 years. But those are limited numbers. They needed to have boosted the numbers in Kashmir. They needed like over 100 new fighters as of like yesterday, and they haven't done so. You know that old saying that you reap what you sow. So India is now reaping what it's sown, which is it's It's a leviathan bureaucracy and red tape and approval process, and it's R&D, like, um, its slowness in getting anything done has created all this. Meanwhile, China has been running circles, literally, around India. And I wish I didn't have to report that right now, but that's just how it is. As far as false flag, I don't believe so. I think it was real. At least it wasn't orchestrated by India. It would not stand to gain a whit from a false flag operation. Um, no, everything going forward is going to be a limited set of options, and I wish India the best. I hope it doesn't come out in an even weaker position, because it's got its hands full right now. Even before the terrorist event, it had its hands full. And it was just coming to this terrible realization that they've kind of dropped the ball. So, if there's a silver lining here, it's this realization among the Indian leadership that they've been dropping the ball for too long. And they've got to fast track stuff. Nothing's going to be changed over the next 5 to 8 years. This is the 31 squadrons we've got. And so that's what I have so far as of this date. Things are pretty much limited as far as India is concerned. Pakistan has nothing to lose. China has everything to gain with a military strike going forward. Both parties would love a war no matter what they tell you. They would love a war. Pakistan wants to be relevant again, and this is its way to be relevant. India wants nothing more to do with this. Wishes it wasn't in this position. I just wish it was better prepared to deal with two very nasty, hostile neighbors. Very deceptive. Anyway, that's what I got right now, and I hope things turn out for the better and become peaceful again. Because I don't know, I the situation going forward doesn't help anyone in most parts of the world unless you're part of the Pakistani leadership or a member of the CCP. That's it for now. I will post something later. Bye.